You ever go by a building, see a for lease sign, then 6 months later, see the same for lease sign on the window? Maybe you're getting tired of seeing a vacant building and you start asking yourself, why don't they just rent it already? I can assure you, you're not the only person asking, because as a broker, I get a lot of questions like this all the time for commercial buildings in my market. This occurs in every market, to be honest, and today I'll be breaking down specific reasons why landlords let their spaces sit empty for so long. So the first reason, and the most important when it comes to investment properties, is that the landlord wants to protect their property's value. Let's say they were trying to fill a space in their building, adjusting the lease's asking rate or accepting a rate 25 to 50 cents per square foot less than what was projected results in tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars wiped from the asset's net operating income, which could take years to recoup depending on the lease terms that were signed. Also, the current or actual NOI, or net operating income, or cap rate, is what buyers will be looking at compared to projections or what the space could have leased for before below market agreements were executed with the current tenants. Another reason why landlords may not want to adjust rents is because of renewals that are going on in their building. Other tenants in the building coming due to renew their leases may realize what rate was recently marketed or agreed to for the neighboring suite, and this rate could be significantly less than what they are currently paying, especially if they've had 2%, 3%, 5% annual increases on their lease term. Now, the tenants whose leases are due to renew are going to leverage this new information, these comparables, to attempt to negotiate a lease in their favor. And if the previous rate that you agreed to is under market, well, guess what? Now you may have multiple tenants in the building paying below market rents, and your investment property is dropping in value. And now maybe you're thinking, well, isn't any rent better than none? Not necessarily, because landlords could be expecting market conditions to improve based on, let's say, new data and real estate forecasts. And signing a lease too soon for too little of a rate could lock in the landlord into below market leases. What if a lease is accidentally signed right before market conditions improve and the space gets locked into a below market unfavorable lease for 5-10 years? Not to mention pre-negotiated option periods that could extend another 5, 10, or even 20 years down the road. Now take a look at this table I created. This gives an example what waiting 2 months for the right tenant is better than rushing and signing a lease at a, let's say, $200 discount. For the same 5-year lease, 3% annual increases, and deducting the $10,000 in lost rent for the 2 months you waited for a tenant to come around, your total gross rent for the lease is nearly $3,000 more than what you would have been earning. Sometimes you'll have periods where a building you know is in high demand gets zero attention. It could be a week or two of radio silence. Then all of a sudden you have back-to-back tours and are writing multiple offers for the same spaces. Sometimes it just pays to be patient. Third reason why landlords may let their investment property sit vacant is turnover costs and tenant improvements, which is also known as TI. Even if the previous tenant did everything they were supposed to do prior to vacating the space, such as patching holes in the walls, sweeping the floors, removing their signage outside or on their window, wear and tear could still exist and the space may need a little bit of work before the next tenant occupies. Now, who completes this work is totally negotiable, but I've noticed that landlords may be more inclined to complete TI for the right lease rate. Meaning a landlord may be totally fine with letting a deal pass if they can't come to an agreement on a monthly rental amount that would allow them to amortize the tenant's proposed improvements. For example, let's say a tenant is proposing $1.50 per square foot per month and wants the landlord to paint and recarpet the 2,000 square foot office space. The landlord may be fine with completing the improvements, but wants to counter at $1.65 per square foot per month to amortize the costs for painting and carpeting the space. Another possible option could be just giving the tenant some free rent and letting them do the work themselves, but we can save that for another video. But regardless, if they can't come to an agreement on these improvements, it may be better to wait till a better tenant comes around, like I mentioned in reason 2. Because TI, or tenant improvements, may not be the only expense for the landlord for a new lease. There could also be free rent and broker commissions if a landlord is working with a leasing agent. Fourth reason on this list that a building may remain vacant for a while is that ownership has a specific preference of type of tenant for the property, meaning the property's tenancy could be mostly, let's say, law firms or accounting firms, or it could be a medical building, and the landlord wants to keep a uniformity of the tenancy. I've seen this firsthand where landlords have rejected offers from tenants which may not meet their goal of who they want leasing the building. For example, the subject property could be a medical building with all the current tenants being medical related one way or the other. And the landlord would rather wait for, let's say, a chiropractor or a dentist to fill the space rather than lease to a tenant in a different industry, even if the use is permitted. Which leads us to our final reason why a space may sit vacant for so long, and that is because design or zoning challenges. You could have a building perfect for retail in a high foot traffic location. However, the space is built as an office with a reception and multiple private offices. And all the prospects who are interested in the space have uses not permitted on the property. I recently had a lease listing with this exact challenge. The building's location was perfect. It would have made an excellent retail space. However, it didn't have an open floor plan, which you would expect from a retail space. It was divided into multiple private offices, and we found out that its previous use, which was basically office, was no longer permitted. Not to mention, we were already priced pretty low for the area. And we did have some inquiries, but they were not approved by the landlord. Long story short, it took a while for us to find a tenant that was permitted and approved by the owners. So next time you see that for lease sign that's been on the building for over a year, you'll know that there's maybe a strategic goal behind it or some legal challenges preventing the space from getting a tenant. And if I did miss a reason that you can think of that would cause a space to sit vacant, let me know in the comments. I'm Joe Morrison, here to help you make smarter, safer, and more profitable real estate decisions. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.